Hey everyone, this is William Katt from The Greatest American Hero, and you're listening to Comic Book Central, where comic books come to life.
Welcome to all of you listeners out there. This is Comic Book Central, where comic books come to life, the world's first podcast devoted exclusively to in-depth interviews with the talented folks who bring comics to life in film, television, animation, video games, podcasts, and beyond. I am your host, Joe Stuber. So glad to be back here in the lair, broadcasting and podcasting to all you folks out there. Took a much-needed break. I hope you all got some downtime as well to recharge those batteries. All right, batteries recharged. Let's get to it, shall we? I am bringing you two episodes revisiting my super adventure at GalaxyCon Columbus. Yeah, GalaxyCon is the pop culture convention that makes stops in 8 major cities across the country. Columbus, Ohio, that's my backyard. That is one of them. This past December, I drove downtown to check out the action, and I'm going to bring you as much of it as I can right here on the show. I spend the weekend going from table to table, talking to the celebrities, some quick chats, not the in-depth conversations you're used to hearing here on the show, but enough to give you a feel of how cool this convention really is. If you want to see if there's a GalaxyCon near you, or if you want to make plans for this December's show here in Columbus, Ohio, those dates are December 5th through the 7th, 2025 here in Columbus, Ohio. You want to head to GalaxyCon.com. Everything you need to know is right there. And by the way, links to everything you're going to hear on today's show can be found in the show notes for this episode at my website, comicbookcentral.net, where you can also get access to the social media sites. There's links there so you can follow Comic Book Central all over on social media. The Comic Book Central YouTube channel, you want to make sure you're subscribed over there. And the episode archive, where you will find in-depth chats with over 500 celebrities who bring comics to life. And one other note, coming up at the end of today's show, as promised, I told you this back on my 11th anniversary special, I'm going to have 3 giveaways for you listeners out there. So these are my anniversary giveaways that are going to be coming up. This is part of it. So you definitely want to stay tuned to the end of the episode for that. Yeah, it's my anniversary, but you guys get the gifts. You know how it all works. So that information is going to be coming up at the end of today's show. 3 of those giveaways I'm going to have at the end of today's show. That is going to be coming your way. All right, big show to get to. First, going to pay a few bills, so check these out. Then I will be back with all of the celebrities in my visit to GalaxyCon Columbus.
I've been drawing funny all my life, and for the past few years, I've been producing Drawing Funny, the pandemically inspired podcast. I'm your host, Lynn Workman, and the podcast is now in its 5th season.
Wow, this guy must really be a professional.
Tune in as I share my latest reviews, news, and interviews.
That would be creepy and fun.
I focus on the Mid-South art and convention scene.
I'm sorry that it's causing so much stress.
I spotlight comic creator Kickstarter campaigns, offer up some recommended reading, share art advice, and talk tunes with some sketchy characters in the comics industry and fandom.
All right, we're here with Jerry the King Lawler. King, everybody knows you got into...
Wait a minute.
Yeah.
Everybody knows me, but can they recognize you for that voice?
You can find Drawing Funny at drawingfunny.com, on Spotify, Apple, or most anywhere you like to download podcasts. You can even ask your smart devices to play Drawing Funny.
Ain't nobody got time for that.
All right, my first stop at GalaxyCon Columbus had to be at the table of a very good friend of the show. He has visited Comic Book Central several times over the years. He was the celebrity guest for my first ever Q&A at Terrificon. That was the first one I moderated. It was at Terrificon. He wore the red tights back in the 80s as Ralph Hinckley, a.k.a. the greatest American hero. Yeah, you know what I'm talking about. The one and only William Katt. All right, now, as you longtime listeners know, The Greatest American Hero is one of my favorite TV shows of all time. My in-depth interview with William can be found. That's back on episode 31, but don't go there now. You have plenty of time after today's show. They're all in the archive. After today's show, if you haven't heard any of these episodes that I'm going to mention, you can check them out, again, in the archive at the website. They're on all the places you find Comic Book Central. But episode 31, that's the in-depth chat. We talk about his entire career. Episode 40, that is that Terrificon Q&A that I mentioned. Episode 358, That was a good one. William and I sat down to watch one of the best episodes of The Greatest American Hero. It was called My Heroes Have Always Been Cowboys. We recorded an episode commentary for that one, so you can play the episode. You can listen to us talking about it. And look, I told you it's one of my favorite TV shows. So William's castmates, right? They've all been here. Faye Grant, Michael Pare, Mary Ellen Stewart, stuntman Dennis Danger Madelone, and the author of the super book, The Greatest American Hero Companion, Pat Jankowitz. You definitely want that book. If you don't have it, by the way, go pick it up. All of those interviews can be found in the archive at comicbookcentral.net, the show's page on Spreaker.com, iHeartRadio, Spotify, Amazon, wherever you get your podcasts. But right now, again, later, you can check those out if you haven't already. But right now, The Greatest American Hero returns to the lair. Here is my chat at GalaxyCon Columbus with the great William Katt. All right, so William Katt finally crash lands in my backyard. Welcome to Columbus.
Hey, thank you.
So glad to have you.
Pleasure to be here.
I don't have to travel to see you now, so it makes it nice. I can just pop down. And what are you looking forward to most this weekend?
Just meeting the fans.
Yeah.
You know, such a great pleasure to come out, and you guys give us an opportunity here to meet all the fans. And we go through and we relive great memories from the past.
New book out by Pat Jankowitz. The Greatest American Hero Companion. You were nice enough to write the foreword to it. I don't know if you had a chance to flip through it. Or
I have.
Okay.
It was very, very well written. And Pat, I've known Pat for years and years.
Great author.
Oh my God, he's a great author.
What surprised you in the book? Because as I'm going through, it's just page after page after page of nuggets. Were there things in there that surprised even you, who lived through it?
Well, it's going back a few years. So
Yes.
what it did mainly is some of the things would I go, oh my gosh, I didn't know that, because he went into things that I didn't even know about were happening. I don't know how he found out.
He digs deep.
He digs real deep.
Yeah, he knows where all the bodies are buried.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah. Was it nice to sort of relive that as you go through it and sort of bring back fond memories of the series? I know at the time it was a little difficult. It was pre all the superhero stuff now.
Well, you know, nowadays you have Scarlett Johansson and Ed Norton, Robert Downey, all these people. They want to get in these big tentpole franchises. But when I was doing the show, and before then when Adam West was doing the show, it was kind of it was difficult for an actor to have a real career after that, because you were put into a box, which television and film tends to do. Now it's a little bit more forgiving.
Yeah.
So you can have those types of careers and wear a costume, and yet go on in the next thing you're doing really serious indies. But back then it was difficult.
And there's so many streaming platforms now, they're just desperate for content. So there's a lot more out there that actors can go after. Are you noticing with the DVD sales, and Pat said that's one of his best-selling books, if not the best-selling book he has. Are you noticing it's hitting another generation now for Greatest American Hero, people coming up, not just old dudes like myself who grew up on it?
It's pretty remarkable, the legs that show has had, and even Seth MacFarlane on Family Guy, he made a reference to it, saying it's amazing the show that had such a short run has lived on so famously for all these many, many years.
Yeah. Well, it's always talk about a reboot. Have you heard anything in that direction? I know there's all kinds of ideas that come up. Is there any movement at all?
They tried it a few years ago, and my friend George Wendt did the pilot.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think the pilot ever saw the light of day.
Right.
I think 20th Century Fox did it. And now I know since Disney bought Fox, I don't know what they're doing with the licensing on that show.
But you'd be involved, right? You'd be in on it in a heartbeat.
Well, they didn't ask me when they did that reboot, although George said that I was in every episode after the pilot. So it was disappointing because it was such a fun show, and I think people would really enjoy it.
I think Michael Pare, when I interviewed him, he said that he would like to be the Bill Maxwell character now, to bring Tony back, and he's the one who's getting roughed up by the young punks now.
I think that's a great idea.
Yeah.
You know, I talk to Connie all the time, and she'd be up for it.
She would be.
Oh my God, she hasn't aged a day, I don't think.
I think you both look great. Have her on tell her next time you're talking to her, tell her to join me on Comic Book Central. I keep trying to call her and John to see if they get on.
I will do that.
Put a bug in her ear. So what's next for you, and how can fans keep following you?
I have a film coming out with Alfred Molina I did called When We Get There.
Okay.
And Mindy Sterling, who has done a lot of work with Mike Myers.
Yep, Austin Powers. You got Doc Ock. You're starting with Doc Ock.
What a nut she is. Just a delightful, fun time to work with her.
Okay.
And actually, I'm doing my first audiobook. I'm going to be doing Kolchak, the Night Stalker from the original show from 1972.
You're doing the audiobook for
I'm doing the audiobook for Monstrous Books.
Very nice. We'll look for that. So, William, have a great...
I start doing that next week.
Have a great time in Columbus. Thank you so much for all that. Thank you for doing the commentary with me, watching an episode of Greatest American Hero. You are always welcome on Comic Book Central.
Pleasure. Thank you so much. And my best to all the fans out there.
And the audiobook Kolchak, the Night Stalker, that's going to be released February 11th, 2025, and can be found at blackstonelibrary.com. I'm going to put the link for that in the show notes for this episode at my website, comicbookcentral.net, so you want to be sure to check that out. All right, moving on to GalaxyCon, to a legend in the Karate Kid universe, Cobra Kai's Martin Kove. And now, you listeners might recall my Terrificon Q&A with Martin and his son Jesse just this past summer. That was episode 475. In that Q&A, we talked about a lot of things, including the final season of Cobra Kai. Those final 5 episodes are about ready to hit Netflix. And we also chatted about Martin and Jesse's comic book set in the Old West called Prodigal Son. So at GalaxyCon, I had an opportunity to sit down with Martin for a pre-show press event that they held, and I got some updates on both of those projects. Here is Martin Kove.
All right, when last we spoke at Terrificon in Connecticut, the first 5 episodes of Season 6 of Cobra Kai had just dropped, so we get to talk a little bit about those. Now we got another 5. It's the gift that keeps on giving. It's just they're sort of doling it out. Do you watch these on Netflix as they drop? Do you watch them that way? Do you see them beforehand? How are you checking them out?
They send it to us beforehand. I don't always, look at everything right away, because I like to watch with my son, who's an actor, Jesse, and I like to watch with my daughter Rachel. I have twins, and she's just now turning the kid, her child, my grandson, who's 7, onto Cobra Kai and Karate Kid.
Oh, wow. Starting from the beginning, going back to season 1 and hit. Okay.
Yeah.
What's he saying when he sees Grandpa?
He likes it. And then, kids in his school,
wow,
they know that his grandpa is John Kreese.
Oh, he's the coolest kid in school.
So he's the coolest kid.
Nice.
So he's cool,
wow.
but he's very active and he's very creative and he's gifted, and so the bottom line is, I think he enjoys it, but he doesn't. He doesn't have a swollen ego about it.
He's 7. Give him time.
He's 7. He's 7. I kind of wonder. You kind of wonder what image a child and when they gravitate to feel privileged that their grandpa is X, Y, or Z.
Yeah.
Does he have to be a Marvel hero?
Yeah.
Can he be a serious actor like Anthony Hopkins? Can he be Jack Nicholson?
Yeah.
Can it be Marlon Brando?
I
kind of wonder.
Karate Kid, I think you're in good stead.
Yeah, I think so. Because it's so universal and so unilateral.
Well, it hit that next gen thing too, because you're bringing in a whole new generation of kids that have opened up this franchise to everything else. So I think when you're seeing that, how do you feel about the way things are wrapping up as we start to approach sort of the end of Cobra Kai coming in? How are you feeling about how the story is playing out?
Well, I think everybody loves it, and there's more fighting in it than I ever imagined. But everybody is fighting someone that they had a melodramatic problem with.
Yes.
We're fighting the Russian, or the kids. She wises off to Tori, and Tori, kicks the ass of that little girl. It's like, everybody has a personal problem, so therefore the writing is paying off with the characters, or the characters are paying off the writing for the audience. These last 5 that air shortly are brilliant. They're just brilliant. The middle 5 was a lot of fighting and a lot of...
I wanted to ask you about Thomas Ian Griffith. Like that, can you walk us through that moment when you got to battle? When Kreese
oh,
and
you
Silver,
mean there? Yeah.
When Kreese and Silver got to throw down.
His unjando was missing, and, it's the knife, and that's how the boy, falls on, stabs himself. But, the story of Terry Silver is a very interesting story. Back in Karate Kid 3, the vehicle of Karate Kid 3 was written for me.
Right.
All for me. And, I would do the sting operation with Ralph and Mike Barnes and blah, blah, blah. And then I couldn't do it because I couldn't get out of a series called Hard Time on Planet Earth. So they had to rewrite the whole thing, and John was too afraid that me working weekends could get everything accomplished. But Karate Kid 3 was my vehicle. So I had to read other actors, and I read Thomas Ian Griffin, and I read a lot of friends of mine, and he got the part. And oddly enough, 40 years later, there's Terry Silver. There wouldn't be a Terry Silver hosting me in Karate Kid 3.
Yes.
And therefore, 40 years later in Cobra Kai, if I hadn't been available.
So thank you, Hard Time on Planet Earth.
Yeah,
Again, it's a series
so.
that keeps giving us all these gifts. But throwing down with him though, was that like any close calls, any issues with that, or was that just
No, Thomas is a great. He's big.
Yeah.
And he's a great great fighter. He's a terrific pianist, and he's a wonderful martial artist, and far superior to me, and he's good. I mean, I'm really good with the upper body. So, we choreograph things with the upper body. And at that time, spinning crescent kicks and all that I can do. But, there's a lot of wonderful little, subtleties that Thomas can do. And we utilize them. Yeah. And the curtains were very effective.
Yes.
But that scene was twice as long originally created. Oh, and Don Lee, who's a brilliant stunt coordinator, he did all of those fights with the kids, puts it all in his head. If you miss on a punch, he's right there and he knows it. Mm-hmm. And 10 things can be going on. And Ken Bearfield is also brilliant. And he's a stunt coordinator of the entire show. And we were blessed with a lot of really good people, shooting in Atlanta and lots of fighting, and the kids are great. Peyton List is terrific, and Sholo and Jacob, plays Hawk. They all evolved into wonderful martial artists. Where at the beginning, I would laugh and say, because no one had to have a martial arts background in order to audition for Cobra Kai, right. Or even to audition for Karate Kid. Right. None of us had to have. Yeah. We all just had to be good actors.
Yeah. You can fix all that in post, but
as
long as we care about the characters. Looking back now as we're wrapping up, do you have any favorite moments from filming the series?
Sure. There was a great fight. My entrance, when I come in at the beginning, and was it episode 10, season 1? And then I have that line, "The real story has only just begun." I love that line, smoking the cigar.
Yeah.
And then
you get those Clint Eastwood moments.
Yeah, I love it with the Italian music in the background from Ennio Morricone, and then the fight scene. When we both, Ralph and I, careened through the window in the dojo, and what's coming up with Billy and I, very emotional moments, and the emotional moments of he and I in the man's shelter. I think it was season 2, where we meet in the men's shelter and he follows me there. I really like the vulnerable moments more than just the fight stuff. Years ago, when I did Rambo and I did all those action pictures, fighting was exciting. But now, when I get a chance to do vulnerable things and cry on camera, I enjoy that very much. It takes the whole cycle full.
Or Hallmark movies with your son and,
I love
and all the things.
Oh.
What's next? We got Dante's Inferno, Killing Mary Sue, A Gunfighter's Deal, The Highwayman. I mean, you're keeping busy.
Well, those are all, they've been around on the pre-production level forever. What we're doing now is The Prodigal Son, which is a comic book that
we talked about that. Is that going to be live action? Is that getting closer?
We're interviewing a showrunner now, and it's very exciting. My partners did Mudbound and Peanut Butter Falcon, and Jeff Frost, who is the former president of Sony TV. He's my partner. So, we got 4 comic books, and they come out in February, and we have the IP. So it's a story of, an old gunfighter, a monster, and a 12-year-old kid, and how they bond with moral fiber together. And it's terrific. It's called The Prodigal Son.
I'm so looking forward to that.
It's really good stuff.
That's going to be a good one.
Because my legacy is really, I want the kids to have heroes like you and I did.
Yeah.
In the 60s, when we had 35 Westerns on primetime TV, we could choose Maverick, Sugarfoot, whoever, Cheyenne, Gunsmoke, any of it.
Yeah.
Now, what are the kids going to choose?
Right.
So it's kind of, Eastwood's gone, John Wayne's gone, in the sense of heroics.
Yeah.
And I don't think Marvel comic book really does it, because it's all special effects. We need some heartfelt heroes coming out of cinema these days.
Yeah.
And I like to do that before I retire.
I'm so stoked for this. When it comes out, you're coming back on Comic Book
Oh,
Central. I
thank you.
guarantee you. You've got an open spot. Welcome anytime.
Oh, you're
Martin,
very
thank
kind.
you so much.
My
Enjoy
pleasure.
Columbus. Enjoy my hometown. Enjoy the week.
This is a great place. I think this is a great place to raise kids. I have a lot of friends, Fred Mayerson, Jimmy Gould. They were all live in Cincinnati, and I've spent many, many days in Cincinnati. And I always love how respectful all the children are of their parents.
Well, you're in the Midwest, and you get to hang out with all your Karate Kid,
But I
Cobra
live
Kai
in-
folks this weekend, too.
I live in Nashville, so it's a little
Nice.
different, and I have a ranch there, and it's a little different.
Well, I lived in Memphis, Tennessee for 8 years, so Tennessee is a great place. So
a lot of
enjoy
blues
it.
in Memphis.
Oh, I
Not
know.
many blues in Nashville, but lots of blues
Blues
in Memphis.
and the best barbecue ever on planet Earth, I got to say.
Oh,
so
great.
Enjoy the weekend.
My pleasure.
Those final 5 episodes of Cobra Kai will debut on Netflix February 13th. And if you haven't heard my Terrificon Q&A with Martin and his son Jesse, where we talk about Prodigal Son, that comic book series, you're going to want to check out episode 475 after today's show. The comic series itself, issue 1 from Thunder Comics, is available February 19th. I will put a link to order that in the show notes for this episode at my website, comicbookcentral.net, or you can check out your local comic book store. I always want to help out our local comic book stores. All right, another returning guest to Comic Book Central, Barry Bostwick. Yeah, I get to meet up with him again. I first met up with Barry at the previous year's GalaxyCon, where we talked about his 80s cult classic Megaforce. This time around, got an update on the upcoming documentary Making Megaforce and a preview of the 50th anniversary of Barry's classic flick, The Rocky Horror Picture Show.
Okay, the last time you were here, welcome back, by the way.
Thank
Glad
you.
to have you here. Sorry it's not a little bit warmer for you.
No,
but,
I like this change.
Good to change it up. Last time you were here, we talked about Megaforce. We talked about the documentary Making Megaforce.
Yeah.
Any movement? Are we closer to
I think
seeing
we're within
it?
6 months to doing it now. I mean, we're color correcting and sweetening up all the sound, and I'm going to do a little more voiceover to it, and it's a documentary nobody was asking for. So therefore, we have a little range
There's
to
no
make
deadline on this.
Yeah, no.
Nobody's asking for a deadline. It's not a production company hounding you for this thing.
No, they have a production company, but
Yeah.
I think that everybody just wants to get a unique documentary, and it is, because it's not just the making of, it's also about the making of a relationship between me and the guy who saw Megaforce way back when.
Okay.
And is seeking out his hero. And
But
his childhood.
it sort of went from that to you becoming involved in it, and now you're almost like a full-blown partner in it, right?
Yeah.
Pretty close.
Yeah, he nudged me into his insanity.
How is that going, by the way?
Good.
Okay.
Yeah,
Is
good.
it a streaming platform? Do we know anything yet? Like
I don't
where
know.
this might
I don't
end
know
up?
where it's going to stream. I know that a couple of festivals are that they're already getting into, but the documentaries are difficult.
Yeah.
They always end up on Netflix someplace, and
There's a
I
lot.
watch them all. Watch them all.
One thing we didn't talk about the last time you were here was obviously Rocky Horror Picture Show. 50th anniversary coming up.
Yeah.
Okay. Big plans for this? Well, and do you tour the country with
tour.
showing this?
Yeah. This year.
You had a lot of dates,
I
right?
did 26 dates in October, and
All in the month of October.
One right after the other,
How
all over the country.
Is that humanly possible?
It was rough. Yeah, it was rough.
Oh my God!
But we played big theaters, and so we had, on the average 1,000 people a night.
Right.
So that would keep you, it would keep you going, and then you'd go to your room and drink tequila.
That's what I do any night anyway.
Yeah.
So that's how, and you're getting paid for it. So, one thing we also didn't talk about was all the sort of interesting, unique merch that you have at your table and on your website. What's the website? We want to drive people to that.
BarryBostwick.com.
Okay, so you can buy all this stuff here. For the listeners at home that can't see this right now, what are some of the more unique aspects of things?
I make these clocks, these time warp clocks, where I get a record and I melt it. And then I put a label on it that looks like it's been melted.
Yes.
And then I put all the clockworks in it, and it works. But each one's unique because every time I blow it with a gun, it acts on its own.
It's like a snowflake. There's no two alike.
Not two alike. I've tried.
And there's something else on there that you have a sign that says "Buy my underwear."
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
We've got 2 kids in college.
Yeah.
Still. I say, still.
They're still costing you money.
Last year it was like, fine, we got 2 kids in college.
There's some great stuff here.
Now they're going for their doctorates and everything, so we even have to help them more.
Okay, well, they'll pay for themselves. They'll pay you back whenever they need to take care of you.
No,
right?
they won't. They won't give a shit about us.
Ungrateful kids. What's next for you? What's coming up next?
I'm going to make a little movie in about 3 weeks, like a low-budget movie in Hollywood, and that'll keep me busy for a little while.
Okay. Can you tell us what it is, genre?
It's a comedy. It's an oddball comedy.
Right up your alley.
I do, I don't know if you knew, Inside the Extra Studio.
Okay.
It was a show that I did on cable.
Yeah.
I did 2 seasons of it.
Okay.
And if you look at Inside the Extra Studio, it's very funny. One of the guys who wrote it is writing this short film, and I'm playing his father in it. And it's weird.
That's what we like. That's what we like our Barry Bostwick. We like him weird.
I got to be weird.
And buy his underwear because he's got kids in college.
That's it.
All right. Thank you. Enjoy the weekend.
Thank you too much.
Thank you.
BarryBostwick.com. That's where you want to be for updates on Barry's projects and appearances. And be sure to check out MakingMegaforce.com for updates on the documentary. I cannot wait for the premiere of that one. That's going to be so cool. Those links, again, I mentioned them. You can find them in the show notes for this episode at my website, comicbookcentral.net. You go there. There's going to be links to everything we're talking about. All right, next up at GalaxyCon, I got to meet up once again with Shazam's Cooper Andrews. Cooper played Victor Vasquez in the feature films Shazam and the sequel Shazam! Fury of the Gods. Victor in the movies, he's the foster father to Billy Batson and the other kids in the films. Now, I first met Cooper at Terrificon 2023. If you had a chance to check out my Terrificon episodes from that year, you might recall there was an actor strike going on during that convention. It had just happened like a couple of weeks right before the convention, so didn't get to do too many Q&As. And Cooper's was, unfortunately, one of the Q&As that was canceled that year. So here's the thing. We had some Q&A time to make up, right? Got to do just that at GalaxyCon.
Okay, so we finally get to meet up again. Like this time, it was nice to meet you at Terrificon in Connecticut.
Yes.
We could talk about stuff, but we just couldn't talk about superhero stuff.
Right, we couldn't talk about stuff. Yeah.
So, your Q&A got canceled, but now we get to talk about whatever.
Yes.
How did you get into acting? That's what I want to know. And of course, as soon as we start talking, they bring the megaphone.
They know. They look at me. There's a guy with a microphone who's staring at me, and he's like, "Is he about to talk?" Yeah,
that's
I'm
exactly
what. Well, I'll go here. Here's my ASMR voice.
There we go.
No. Well, there's the like how we all got into acting when we were kids. We were all like performing in front of families. There's all that stuff, but like the moment where acting kind of started kicking in. I got into film with doing stunts. That was the goal. I mean, not at the level of like, I was
like Dar Robinson or something.
It was like indie kind of like I had a martial arts background, and I was like, okay, this is,
You know how to take a punch. You know how to roll.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the thing. No stuntman wants, or no stunt coordinator wants to hear. It's like, oh, you can just punch me in the face as many times as you want. It's like, they're like, if it's needed, we'll let you know. But that's not. It's repeatable actions. Yes, it's last call. Congratulations. Everyone's drunk. I see a whole lot of people limping.
It's only Friday.
I thought they were zombies. They're just drunk. It's all good.
It's going to be a long weekend.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, a long-legged weekend. Okay, so I did a play. I did One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest.
Oh, wow.
For this.
What role?
I played Chief Brownton.
Of course.
And that was...
I didn't want to assume.
Oh, yeah, I know.
I didn't want to assume, but...
So I got to play him, and that was in 2013.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And I had done like a commercial or so, but I was mostly doing sound stuff. I was a boom operator, so I've been in the industry. I've been in the industry for over 20 years now, but half of it was sound, and then the other half was acting now.
Wow.
And so I was a boom op during this time, and I couldn't make all these rehearsals, but I was the only one apparently that could play that role.
Yeah. What was your first on-camera gig? Do you remember?
This is what happened. So I do that character. I do the thing, and it was for a small theater. But I was with an agency, but they sort of forgot about me. And then the lead actor of that, his agent, they came back and they saw me, and it's nice. It was a small theater, but when I see everyone crying, I'm like, when I'm crying, I see like. And I didn't realize I'm crying. I'm like, oh, I got tears on my face. That's crazy. And but I see everyone in the theater crying, and I'm like, huh, cool. And the agent, Susan, she comes up to me and she's like, do you want to get back into this? And I was like, yeah, let's do it. So 6 months later, if that, it's like 3 months later. I'm sorry, it was like 3 months later. Wow. I get this audition for *Halt and Catch Fire*, and I read this character, and the character's name is Yo-Yo, and it takes place in the 80s. It's a computer show on AMC, and I did yo-yo. I yo-yoed a lot. Like, I would do 2 yo-yos. I can spin them around. I can wrap around fingers, land on the string. Okay. Like, I can do all these tricks.
Oh, so the character's name was Yo, but he was a trick yo-yo guy.
Yeah, it was a thing they just thought would be very 80s. But,
okay, of course.
But I'm like, I got this. They said Eskimo-esque like quality,
right.
And I was like, all right, I could play this guy. And it was the first time, and sort of how I approach a lot of auditions. I'm like, this is my role. I got it. This is how I'm doing it. And I sent in a tape, and then I do a yo-yo trick when I'm slating my name, and then they bring me in for a callback, and I do it again there. And then things just started rolling. So yeah, it was like top of 2014, January 2014, and since then I've been working nonstop, and it's been great.
Do you recall just the process of getting the role of Victor in Shazam and just kind of going through that? And then did you glean anything from the comic books, or did they get anything from there?
So I was a huge DC fan. I actually got the name Cooper because of Superman. I was born Annie Taleafanai was my Samoan name,
right?
And we had to change names when I was a kid. And my mom was like, what name do you want to be? I'm 3 years old. I wanted to be named like Andy Superman. I went by Andy as a kid. And then she's like, well, I don't know if we could do Superman. So we looked through a phone book, and we got to Cooper.
Nice.
And we looked through the phone book, and we got to Cooper. And she's like, it's like Superman. So then, picked the name Cooper.
So definitely a comic book guy coming in.
So I drew as a kid. I like doing storyboards.
Yeah.
And now but all that stuff for making, for shooting a film, I like doing storyboards to conceptualize how we'd shoot something. So,
and then getting Victor.
And so getting Victor, when that happened, I was shooting with Pollyanna McIntosh, her movie called Darlin', and I was in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, and I had no one to read with me. I got this thing for Franklin was the name of the thing. I'm like, oh, that's got to be Shazam. Like instantly, I saw the thing Franklin. I'm like, oh, is this Shazam? Are they making? And I didn't know they were making a Shazam movie. I just assumed, well, it was Captain Marvel in my mind at the time. So, I get this. I get the call for it, but I had no time. I was filming this movie. I had no time to learn these lines. I had no way of studying for it, not really. And I was just exhausted. I was tired. It was the end of the year. I remember reading through it. I'm like, oh, I know this guy. I know this guy very well. And so my audition was recorded off my cell phone in selfie mode. I put my gray T-shirt over the yellow lamp so that it would cool the color off. Okay. Because it came out too warm, and I wasn't thinking of color correcting my own video. I'm like, I'm not putting that much time into it. And I read my lines off of an iPad as my buddy sat in a hot car in Los Angeles reading through my computer. I was so glad I had all these gadgets with me, or I couldn't have done the read. But I did 2 takes each on my own audition tape, and I sent in the first one for both. And that's how I know, when I don't have to refine anything or check anything. And I was like, this is it. And I sent it in, and then I didn't hear anything for maybe 3 or 4 weeks, and then I got it. And then becoming Victor was the easiest thing on the planet because, one, I'm coming from Walking Dead, which is one of the hardest shows to do, and that's from a crew standpoint and from an actor standpoint. It's the most physically demanding show I've seen or done. Right. But we worked with each other, and we got to know each other, a lot of the cast. So I figured I'd bring that in for my part in Shazam. So I wanted to make a point I just wanted to get to know who I was working with, but I really liked spending time with a lot of the kids, with Marta, of course, my best friend on that show, who played Rosa, and she's this incredible talent. She learned all of Toronto in the first 2 weeks, and I've been eating Cheerios and playing video games. I didn't realize the grocery store I was going to was a Canadian equivalent of a gas station. I was just wow, this place is super fancy, and it was like a 7-Eleven equivalent. Yeah. We would do YouTube nights, pancake nights, going to all these different restaurants, watching movies. And the only thing was, as the family, the only difference was I never acted like their dad. I didn't want to. I didn't want to. If someone was going to do something that would get them in trouble, I'm like, that's a you and your parent thing. Just don't involve me. Yeah.
And it comes across.
Yeah. I just wanted them to trust me so that we can have fun scenes and they don't look at me as this. I needed them to look at me like a coworker, not as a, because that's just how it worked. But it was a wonderful time I spent. So evenings with the kids, doing food, and then nights with the adults, and it was trippy for me because, they're casting people that look like each other. So it's spending time with their 30 years younger self. Sorry guys, I mean 15 years younger self. But yeah, that was.
As we wrap up, I gotta ask. It's a weird time in the DC universe. Yeah. Shazam the first one definitely did well. Yeah. Second one hit a weird marketing area. Yeah. But have they given any indication to you guys that your cast could come back, that Zachary could come back, that they exist in what James Gunn's doing, or if you told me, you'd have to kill me? Do you have any idea about any of that?
I have. I mean, my leaning, I don't think they're gonna do anything with us again. And I think that's a shame because there's some really clever ideas and really cool things that we could explore, but it's the end of kids are getting older, and the performance of the second movie, though I don't think it did not deserve it. I mean, don't get me wrong. I criticize everything I'm in, and I look at what could be better. But I'm
the target audience for it. It's good. Yeah. I think Black Adam hurt you guys. Real quick, you did get to play a superhero, Aquaman. Coolest part about being Aquaman?
Oh, geez. I mean, I love talking with the fish and singing about it. But that was a lot of fun, that thing. But yeah, best part about being Aquaman is just having all that power with all that freedom. While though he's a king, he still got to hang out in his kingdom, which is the entire world essentially. And with other superheroes, they're bound by living in their city or bound by their mission. and the mission of Aquaman is just to keep the peace and make everyone happy. So,
welcome to Columbus. Have a great weekend, and thanks for joining me on the show.
Thank you very much. Yes.
And rounding out this first part of my adventure at GalaxyCon Columbus is a side trip to Gotham City, thanks to author John Jackson Miller. Yeah, friend of the show, John Jackson Miller. Now, I first met up with John over on the IndieCast for my Further Adventures of Indiana Jones segment. John, of course, was the author of the Crystal Skull comic book adaptation. By the way, I've posted that in-depth chat on my YouTube channel, the Comic Book Central YouTube channel. There's an Indiana Jones playlist. So all those segments are over there. The interview with John is over there as well. On episode 460 of Comic Book Central, though, I caught up with John at GalaxyCon, where we talked about his Star Trek and his Star Wars books. You definitely want to get your hands on those. This time around at GalaxyCon, when we met up, John and I talked about his latest book, and it, in my humble opinion, is one of the coolest concepts around. John has written a novel set between Tim Burton's 1989 film Batman and the 1992 sequel Batman Returns, both, of course, starring Michael Keaton. John's new Bat novel is called Batman Resurrection. It takes place soon after the 1989 flick. It's sort of this like unofficial sequel. It is so cool, and it is bat-tastic. Here is my Bat Chat with John Jackson Miller.
All right, well, welcome back to Comic Book Central. The last time we were talking about Indiana Jones, you told me about Batman. Now we finally get to talk about Batman. We won't talk all about it because we don't want to spoil anything, but how did this, congratulations on the book, by the way. How did this come about?
Well, I've been writing Star Wars The Living Force, and which is my latest novel from Random House Worlds, and my editor, Tom Holler from Random House Worlds, said, you saw Batman in the theater 12 times, didn't you? And I said, yes, I did, and I kept the ticket stubs. I reviewed the...
I thought I was the only one that did that.
I reviewed the movie for my college paper in Knoxville back in '89, and had written about it many times since then in Comics Buyer's Guide and my website Comic-Con and other places, talking about the importance of the movie. And I know this movie backwards and forwards, and he's like, well... we have the opportunity to do novels set in and around or inspired by the Burton movies, wow. And I was just delighted to get that offer. And I could never call it a dream project because I never dreamed it was possible that we could license just the two Tim Burton movies and nothing else.
And this is like a byproduct of the Batman '89 comic book. This is all part and parcel of.
I would say it's not
this stuff coming out of that.
I would say it's not necessarily a byproduct, or it wasn't necessarily caused by it. It certainly wasn't hurt by the fact that we have a resurgence in popularity of the nostalgia for the '89 movie. At the same time, that the Flash appearance of Michael Keaton came out.
Right.
Michael Keaton having a moment with Tim Burton again in Beetlejuice 2, and then also we have DC, which had been doing some of these retro pieces. Batman 66, Wonder Woman 77, or whatever the number is, 78.
Superman 78, all those,
Well, what they did is they did Superman 78 and Batman 89 at the same time. Sam Hamm, one of the two screenwriters of Batman, came back to do it along with Joe Quinones, and Joe, of course, is the artist on the series. Joe had done covers for my Star Wars Knight Errant series years earlier at Dark Horse. So we have this wave, I think, that we're kind of catching. And what did happen is I consulted with my editor and with the people at Warner Brothers and with Andrew Marino at DC about what they had going, so as to not collide with anything that they were doing or duplicate their effort in any way. And because their series, and they've got a second one that's coming out now, because the Shadows miniseries and the Echoes miniseries both take place well over a year after Batman Returns, I said, okay, I want to go hug the first movie.
Yeah.
I want to be pretty soon after the end of it.
For those that aren't familiar with it, this novel, a full novel, full adventure that takes place in between Batman 89 and Batman Returns from 92.
And it is the Resurrection is the first such novel.
Okay.
It is not the last.
Yay. Hearing that.
And,
is this a trilogy? Your own trilogy?
No, this is so far it's a duology. I can't tell you anything beyond that. But basically, there were 2 Batman movies by Burton.
Okay.
So we'll have at least 2 novels.
Did you have this story already, or when you got the green light, did you start from scratch?
This is what's sort of fun about this is when I was writing my reviews for the University of Tennessee Daily Beacon. The first review that I wrote in the summer of '89, of course, was obviously a glowing book, a review saying, this movie has really sort of redeemed Batman in the popular culture and comics in general in the popular culture, telling people that they can be more serious. But I did a second version of the review when the students came back from summer break, where I expanded on it. And by that time, I had seen the movie 10 more times.
Right.
And
I
said, but what? Now I have some questions.
Right.
Okay. And I started,
now you're picking the story apart as an author.
I'm picking the story apart, and I'm realizing, okay, there are some blown lines here there are some discrepancies here that don't make sense unless it's a blown line or something else like that, or unless there's something you just don't know about.
Okay.
So,
can you give me an example? Is it like the Nicholson line at the end, maybe?
Yeah, Nicholson saying, "I was a kid when I killed your parents." Right. Well, Bruce Wayne is not known to him as Batman at that point. There is no connection to draw there, and in the last few weeks of this movie, he's killed a lot of people's parents.
That's right.
And so I remember at the time saying, okay, I don't quite get this. There were other elements that, are just matters of I now know are just little continuity moments that just changed in the cutting of the movie and how they did things. And I realized that these are possible springboards. And I said this back then, and I had my theories of how these things could have happened or what could have happened, a way to possibly bring the Joker back into the picture. I was writing about that in Comics Buyer's Guide, in the late '90s and early 2000s. And so what happened is I get into this notion of can I actually turn this into a plot point here? Nice. Can I milk this? Can I get something out of it? And I realized that I had in the form of we have a character Clayface.
I was going to ask you, so we can say who the antagonist is.
Yeah. Well, he is one of the characters in the book.
Right. And as we speak at your table, you have the artwork that Joe Quinones did who did the comic book. And he did a version of your...
our version of what we think he would have looked like in our picture, as described by me, or in our novel, rather.
Right.
And what we did is, we went back and forth on what he should look like. But again, this was a question of it's not a spoiler because we meet him in chapter 1.
Right.
But the whole idea was, at every point I said, what would Tim Burton do, or what would it have looked like in 1989? What would they have done? A version of Clayface in these movies would have been a practical effects character. I visualized that Burton would much more have done a Universal Monsters style, Lon Chaney kind of a thing.
Right.
Already, they're riffing on the Golden Age Batman, so that takes us back to the Basil Carlo, the actor, in his very first appearance. So all these things here.
And you tied it in with the Smilex sort of poisoning from the first movie. That's early on, so that's not really a spoiler.
And again, these were just springboards that were available to go from. And so that's what I did, and it all worked out. And so I had a blast with it, and we have already announced that my next book, Batman Revolution, comes out in the fall of 2025.
Okay.
It is a sequel to this novel. so it is still in between the two movies.
Nice.
As we know from Star Wars and The Empire Strikes Back, you can put a lot of stories in 3 years.
Yes, there's a lot that fills in. When you're talking about the voices of the characters, I mean, as I'm reading it, just as an example, I'll use Knox, Robert Wuhl. He jumps off the page because I can hear Robert Wuhl's voice. Was he just in your DNA so much at that point?
Well, I was.
That sounded weirder than I meant it to.
Well, no, it was. I was a student journalist at that point. I was training to be a reporter. I identified with him more than anybody else. I was also a smart ass, so that absolutely fit for me. And again, I was a fan of his comedy. He did a lecture series called "Assume the Position," very funny. And of course, he was an Arliss too. And I'm a pretty good mimic when it comes to these characters, and particularly somebody whose voice is so authentically original.
It's dead on. Have you heard from any of the cast members yet, or
from behind the scenes, I've talked with Michael Uslan. He said some nice things about the producer of this series of movies. Also gotten very nice notes from Sam Hamm, screenwriter of the series. Got to meet Danny Elfman in New York.
Nice.
That was very cool. And certainly would like to get a chance to meet a lot of the other folks as well. But this is a level of picture that does not have a lot of folks on the circuit.
That's true. How are the sales for this thing going?
Very, very well. I think we approached it all along as this is not a typical superhero novel which has a certain ceiling.
Right.
This is not a comic book novel which has a certain ceiling to it. This is a movie novel.
Yep.
And so we all along worked to promote it, and we expected that it would be much more like a Star Wars book.
Where do we go to get it, and then where do we go to get the next one that's coming out?
It is available everywhere at all major bookstores. It's in hardcover, audiobook, and ebook, it's also on my eBay store page. Faraway Press is my store, signed copies, and then we have people can find out more about the new book and everything else that's coming out on my social media pages. I am John Jackson Miller on Facebook, Instagram, and Threads. I am farawaypress.com on Blue Sky. I am JJM Faraway on the Bird site.
Yeah.
And then I am farawaypress.com is my website.
Perfect. John, enjoy the weekend. Congratulations. Thanks for coming back to Comic Book Central and talking Batman.
Glad to do so.
Yeah, if you haven't already, you definitely want to get your gauntlets on Batman Resurrection. I cannot wait for that follow-up novel. John's website, by the way, it's farawaypress.com. You can find out about all of his projects there. I'm going to put a link in the show notes for this episode again, where you can buy Batman Resurrection on Amazon. By the way, if you buy the book from that link, that Amazon link that I'm going to put in there, it doesn't cost you anything extra, and Comic Book Central does get a few pennies from that if you use that link. So it's a great way to support the show if you so choose, but definitely get it. Get that book no matter how you can get it. All right, that is part one of my trip to the recent GalaxyCon Columbus. My thanks to everyone that puts GalaxyCon together and for inviting Comic Book Central in to be able to share in the fun and to be able to talk to some of these celebs. I always appreciate that. My thanks to William Katt, Martin Kove, Barry Bostwick, Cooper Andrews, and John Jackson Miller for taking the time to talk to me at the show. I'll give you a preview of part two in just a moment, but I did promise some giveaways for you listeners out there, all right? Like I said, back on my 11th anniversary special, I mentioned that those anniversaries would be coming up in a couple of episodes. This episode right here is one of them. Today, I am giving away 3 items related to my guests on today's show. One guest is Cooper Andrews, and I have 2 exclusive Shazam comics to give away. The comic itself, that was a promotional item from AMC Theaters. It was given away at the premiere of the film, so if you missed out on that at the time, if your AMC didn't have those giveaways, well, here's an opportunity for you to get your hands on that comic book. I've got 2 copies to give away to 2 listeners out there, and I've got one other giveaway for this episode, and it's tied to the chat you just heard with John Jackson Miller. You got to realize, man, Burton and Keaton's Batman flicks, they are coming back in a big way. And I've got a limited edition Batman Returns Batman action figure. It's from Spin Master Toys. It was released to celebrate the 85th anniversary of Batman last year. And again, if you missed out on this, if you couldn't find it at your toy store, it's a very cool action figure. It features a very cool Michael Keaton likeness. I've got one for you right here. How do you get your hands on one of these 3 super giveaways? It's easy. You longtime listeners know the drill by now. You've got to like and follow Comic Book Central on social media and share the lair. On the Facebook page, it's facebook.com/Comic Book Central Network. So like the page, follow it over there. Or on X or Twitter, it's at Comic Book CTRL. So you want to follow the show there. Or the show's page on Blue Sky. Yeah, we're on Blue Sky now. It's at Comic Book Central. You can go there. You follow or like one or all 3. It's better all 3, right? You should be following on all the platforms. You're going to see a pinned post on all 3 of those platforms. It's the pinned post mentioning this giveaway and this episode. It's going to be very clear. You share that post, you retweet it, share, re-blue sky it, whatever you want to call it, whatever it is, share the lair. That gets you in the running for these 3 giveaways. So you have to be following on the platform or subscribed or however you do it on each of the platforms. And then you have to share or retweet or repost that pinned post. By the way, make sure your settings are on public, especially on Facebook. Sometimes you folks share a post on Facebook, but your settings are private, so I can't see that it's you when you've shared it. I can just see that somebody shared it, but I have no idea who it is. So make sure those settings are so that I can see that you shared the post. Make sure I can see you when you share the lair. Sorry, international listeners. I love all of you out there, but this giveaway is for the U.S. residents only. Those international shipping rates are crazy high, but I do love when you share the lair as well, so you can do it and just support the show. I always love when you do that, but the giveaways are for U.S. residents only. All right, that's how you get in on the anniversary giveaways. A little late, but better late than never. I needed to take a little break for a little while, but I told you they were on their way. Yeah, it's my anniversary, but you get the gifts, right? And I have one more giveaway coming up on a future episode. So be sure you've subscribed to the show everywhere so you don't miss that one. And I will say, make sure you have subscribed to the YouTube channel. That's all I'm going to say about that for now. All right, that is it for today. Epic start to my GalaxyCon Columbus recap. And one more episode is on the way because next time on Comic Book Central, you will hear from Gremlins star Zach Galligan. We're celebrating the 40th anniversary of the classic film. From the Major League Films and Marvel's The Punisher, Corbin Burnson, he's going to be here. And from the Supergirl TV series, Thomas Lennon and Peter Facinelli, they're going to be here as well. And yes, Thomas was at the event in his full whatever there is of it, Reno 911 outfit. You can see us in my GalaxyCon photo album on the Facebook page. You will not be disappointed. Get going on those giveaways, folks. Share the lair. And until we get together for part 2, keep safe, keep reading those comics. And thanks for joining me here in the lair, Comic Book Central, where comic books come to life. All original content of this podcast is the intellectual property of Comic Book Central. All the content and names are registered trademarks and copyrights of their respective holders.